Questions. We have tons of them. What if some of those questions can be answered with a simple email? Now is that time, and welcome to Chat with Charlie. Host Stephanie Lynn is a certified spiritual life coach and psychic medium. She will work together with Spirit to answer both your submitted and live questions. Not only will Stephanie be providing you with insight, but also interviews with amazing guests. Now, your host of Chat with Charlie, Stephanie Lynn.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Chat with Charlie on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. I am really excited about today's guest, especially with the time of year, with Christmas coming up. But before I introduce him, I did want to touch on something very quickly. I know it's been within the media again, especially recently. And also, it's that time of year. You know, the holidays are not always a happy time for all of us. They can be depressing. So I always just want to reiterate, I know it's scary to go out to find mental health support. I understand that the system can be broken. It can make you feel like you shouldn't have reached out for help because it can make you feel like you did something wrong. But I just want to reiterate, there are people out there to support you, that, you know, all the anxiety, all the things that we feel that may be more emphasized this time of the year can be overcome. And so please reach out. There is now that new Lifeline number, 988, that you can call if you need somebody to talk to. So please don't suffer alone. There are people that want to help you. Good morning, Diana. Thank you for tuning in. And so now I want to get to the fun things because, right, it's almost Christmas. We're coming into a magical time of the year. But where did that come from? Good morning, Ellie. Where did this feeling of Christmas, the lore, the traditions come from? And so I'm so excited to have Tobias Wayland coming in and talking to us about the lore of Santa Claus and the Yule Father. So please help me welcome Tobias to the show. Good morning, Tobias.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited because we talked a little bit before the show started. We kind of look at modern day traditions and don't know where things come from, don't know or understand the background behind that. But before we kind of start looking into that, and I'm so impressed with your knowledge on these topics, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the head writer and lead investigator for the Singular Fortean Society. And Singular Fortean Society is an organization that was founded by myself and my wife, Emily, back in 2016. And if you're not familiar with the word Fortean, it comes from was a early 20th century collector of weird news stories. We collect all these weird news stories from all over the world. And he would write these really comprehensive volumes on all of these weird phenomena.
Wow.
You know, he would try to make mentions, and a lot of what he did was sort of tongue in cheek. Like he came up with the idea for the cosmic joker, for instance, as sort of a way to explain things that otherwise just frankly don't make any sense. And one of the most famous quotes though was, "One measures a circle beginning anywhere," and this sort of say that by examining any one aspect of the paranormal or unusual, you can understand something about all of it because it does be interconnected. And so, yeah, something that we've really taken to heart and sort of color our particular approach, you know, when it comes to these subjects. And then the word singular sometimes trips people up too, but really we don't mean it in the sense that we're the only 40 or something. Right. We know that isn't, you know, the case, but, you know, instead that, you know, singular has more than one meaning, and of course it can mean one, but it can also mean unique or remarkable. And so our perspective yeah, like our perspective is that, everybody's perspective is unique or remarkable, and
Yes.
by incorporating all of these different perspectives, can we can we really have a chance of maybe getting closer to the actual truth? And so what we're really looking for is a society, singular Forteans, unique or remarkable people, sort of taking this interconnected, holistic approach to paranormal phenomena.
And I love that, because it's, and like you pointed out, yes, it says singular, but it's that uniqueness that it's pointing out, because there are so many. It's such a vast topic when you're looking at these things, when you're looking at lores, when you're looking at the paranormal. And so I love the diverseness, I guess, of the topics that you cover. I had spent a lot of time, I've heard about you also through Barnaby, and I've enjoyed looking at some of those things. So when we look at, with this time of the season coming into the Christmas holiday, where does some of these legends come from? Outside of Santa Claus, and we had talked a little bit about this earlier when we were behind the scenes. You had mentioned there's a lot of other lores and things that come into play this time of the year. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. There really is so much. Just looking around your house, you can probably see many things. Honestly, looking right behind me, you can see those holiday gnomes we have there.
Yes.
Those are actually based on the traditional Scandinavian legend of Nisser.
Okay.
And so what a Nissa is essentially this helpful patriarchal spirit. They usually appear as like wise and old men, and they were said to be attached to certain
Right.
homes, and they'd be very, very helpful if they let you. So if you were a hardworking, sort of person, and you had a Nissa living at homestead, they might help groom your animal.
Oh, that's awesome. Right.
Like help with your harvest, house chores, things. But if they didn't, like, they had this prodigious cause all of have, they were especially with the Yuletide season.
Okay.
So traditionally people would like the bold horrid for them, as sort of
Sure.
to keep them in a good mood. But now, like at least both of the came from Christmas markets.
Okay.
And you can't go to any Christmas market, especially here in Wisconsin.
Yes.
The Scandinavian heritage without finding these things, and people just kind of look at them as silly gnomes without knowing where they're from. But that's what it is, And so there's all kinds of things. You can look at your Christmas tree,
Right.
In Germanic cultures, people have been decorating trees, because of pre-Christian, sort of pagan tree worship. Like people decorating trees for Yule, well before conversion to Christianity.
Right.
Then lighting Christmas trees did start, post conversion. I believe that was in maybe the 16th century. Popular though in the 18th or 19th century.
Okay.
But putting ornaments and food and stuff as ornaments on your tree, that has been a thing in Germanic countries.
Yes.
Before Christianity. And then of course you can look at decorating with wreaths. Honestly, I could one's home with boughs of evergreen as a symbol of life, as a symbol of life in this season of death specifically. Very popular since well before Christianity, and a lot of these things, like I said before, people just kind of take for granted, and they really think about where they come from, what the origin is, like what their meaning might be.
Right. Absolutely. And I think too, and I had read somewhere where some of it, like you were talking about decorating the trees, and it was about giving back and to those, I don't know, tree spirits or wood spirits, but it had to, some giving back. And I had read a really nice story about that made me kind of start thinking about this, where I was like, I need to find somebody to talk about where these things come from. And I think kind of transitioning over to modern day Santa Claus, and I think because that has changed so much, and people will look at it, and sometimes as adults, we lose that magic, we lose that connection with the season. But let's talk about like where that lore comes from, and then those magical experiences that people are still having related to the Yule Father or Santa Claus.
Yeah, definitely. So, right off the bat, like the modern Santa Claus, there's really no denying the importance that, say, like a figure like Saint Nicholas had
Yes.
on modern Santa Claus. I mean, that's literally where his name comes from. It's so Santa Claus comes from Danish nickname. No, I'm sorry, Dutch nickname for Santa Claus. So in
Yes.
Dutch, it was Sinterklaas or something, and so they shortened it to Sint Claus. And then Santa Claus, when it came to this country in the
Right.
18th century. So obviously going back to those stories of Nicholas, the famous 3rd century saint who was known for his generosity and giving gifts.
Right.
That was incorporated into this figure, and it
Yes.
really plays a central role. But this holiday figure, this winter holiday figure, existed for some time prior to that. We did see
Right.
During the conversion to Christianity, a lot of traditional pre-Christian stories,
Yes.
and traditions, of course, be incorporated into Christmas, because Yule was very, very popular. It
Yes.
was one of the biggest celebrations of the entire year, and people didn't want to give it up, which makes sense if you think about it. Like, think about now living in a place like Wisconsin.
Right.
How dark it gets, like how dreary things
Yes.
can be.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. So this, weeks-long celebration where, everybody's basically enjoying themselves and focusing on positive things.
Right.
And feasting and drinking and lighting everything up with fires and everything
Yes.
else. How necessary that would be just to people's mental health, frankly.
Absolutely.
And so, when it came time to, really push for conversion, there was no way anybody was going to give that up, So really,
Right.
all you do is say, well, no, we're not really changing anything. It's just instead of this, now we're doing this,
Right. Right.
And so there then, prior to Saint Nicholas, this that I most are familiar with, Odin, All-Father,
Yes.
the king of the Norse gods.
Mm-hmm.
And around Yule, a really good time in the winter, especially around this Yuletide season, he wanted to lead what was known as the wild hunt. And so
Okay.
he would sort of gather his Valkyries and the souls of the honored dead that held with him, and go out, and they would roam the land, and they would giants and
Right.
other, evil creatures of Norse mythology.
Yes.
And also during the time, since Odin was going to be out and about traveling, that would be especially where people need to be aware of his presence, and
Yeah.
really be aware of his vision and his judgment. And so during that time, he would be he said to deal out weal or woe depending on his particular judgment. But interestingly, too, because everybody got into this, you would have things like kids would leave their shoes out. They would fill them with hay.
Yeah, my boys still do that.
For Sleipnir, which was Odin's 8-legged horse.
Okay.
And so the more you sort of look into that, the more parallels you see with Santa Claus. Prior to the 1930s, so everybody's sort of aware of Santa Claus in his big red suit as this giant fat man with the rosy cheeks and everything, right? Well, that was an invention of Coca-Cola Company in the 1930s.
Really?
So they came up with this advertising campaign, and I think they sort of took the lead from the 19th century poem.
Okay.
That large jolly, but they went all in, and it's like the iconic image of Santa Claus, but that didn't really exist prior to that. For years and years prior, decades if not centuries, it was depicted as being Odinic, really, for lack of a better word. Where you have this figure. So for instance, Odin was often depicted as this cloaked traveler wearing this like broad brimmed hat, right?
Oh, I love that.
It's a very cool image. And
it is.
Santa Claus depicted in much the same way. He would be the figure, fur trimmed cloak, often with a wide brimmed hat, and a relatively soft figure. Like he was a thin person until in the 19th, then earlier 20th century, when he was more commercialized, and it was decided that it would be more attractive, I guess, for him to be this big jolly fellow.
Right.
But prior to that.
And I kind of want to jump in, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm making connections in my head as you're talking. And in my culture, I grew up Pennsylvania German. My family has a lot of German heritage. And I find it really interesting because we have, and I don't know if this is a figure you're familiar with, the Belschnickel. And he is kind of like Santa's grumpy cousin, where he would come and if you were not behaving, you would get a treat. But if you reached for that treat and you were not in good standing, you would get switched. So it was, again, about, like you're saying, the woes and that judgment. But he is always depicted as a kind of a grumpier looking person, but dressed in furs, dressed as that traveler. And so as you were talking about that, I was making the connections to what I grew up with as the Belschnickel, and having the trapper furs and that sack. So I just found that really interesting.
It's very, very interesting. And I think that there is a connection there, because obviously, like, Germans are part of this Germanic, this larger Germanic heritage. And if you go back far enough, the ancestors of Germans, would have had a very similar pantheon to, say, Scandinavian or anybody else in that like northwestern Europe area and language grouping. And so it's really endlessly fascinating. Even once we're sort of starting to move away from Santa as this figure of punishment, and really, they never completely got away from it. I don't see it in modern media now, but they bring coal to bad children instead of presents. We still have that today, but even people were focusing almost exclusively on, say, like Nicholas, and of course, don't want to have Nicholas be anything other than this same figure. Well, then you have Krampus. sort of the you have Krampus to go and do all of Saint Nick's dirty work of punishing people.
Yes. And Casey did just jump in as you were bringing in Krampus and asked if we had talked about Krampus yet. So I'm glad that came in.
How synchronous it is. Yeah. So, I mean, and for anybody who isn't who isn't aware, Krampus is this holiday figure who basically looks like somewhat stereotypical figure, like of the devils. So he's got like the ram's horns and goat legs. He's very demonic looking, and often depicted with these sharp teeth and long, like devilish tongue.
Yes.
And basically, what he does is he carries a bunch of around. He's got this large basket, and if kids are bad, if kids are good, they get something nice from Saint Nick.
Right.
But if they're bad, on December 4th, Krampus knocked. The Krampus will come around and he will beat them with switches.
Right.
And I mean, if they're actually bad, he throws them in his bag and takes them to the underworld, which is not great. It's a good reason to be good.
Absolutely.
Honestly. But I mean, he is that punitive element of St. Nicholas.
And I like how the lores have that divide of, like you said, like good cop, bad cop. It's kind of like who's coming in and doing the regulation of behaviors and how we're treating each other. I would like to, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about people's experiences with some of these things, because there are interesting paranormal or unexplained instances and occurrences people have experienced around, all of these. So we'll touch back on those in just a minute when we come back from break.
Certified psychic medium Stephanie Lynn creates an authentic connection between the living and the spirit world. Stephanie knows she is here to help heal, educate, and provide validation that there is more after death, and allows herself to be a conduit and work as a team with spirit to pass on messages from their world to ours. Stephanie Lynn also works as a spiritual life coach to help you achieve, create, and manifest your best self and life. Looking for help communicating with an animal? Searching for a past life regression therapist? Or dealing with a paranormal experience? Stephanie Lynn is here to help. For a list of full services, visit her on Facebook under Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive. That's Stephanie Lynn Spirit Sensitive. Ellie Weisensel's psychic medium is a medical intuitive that specializes as a body code practitioner. As an energy healer, Ellie offers additional services that allow her modalities to be intertwined with energetic healing. Within your subconscious lies information that knows everything about you and why you deal with specific conditions. The subconscious can be considered the blueprint to your entire body. With Ellie working physically with your subconscious mind, we detect what negative emotions are trapped and where they are stored within the body that is causing you your emotional and physical pain. This work is designed to remove imbalances and correct them energetically, getting to the root cause of why you have your condition, to help balance your body so it may heal itself. Your body is infinitely wise and wants to be in balance. The body code is not only gentle for humans, but it is also a gentle process to help animals. For more information, contact Ellie Weisensel at the website below.
Hi, and welcome back to the Chat with Charlie show. I am your host, Stephanie Lynn. You are watching us on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. If you are just tuning in, we are being joined today by Tobias Wayland. And please go back into the comments where you can find more information out about Tobias and the things that he's working on and his just everything. He's fantastic. But today we're really talking about the lure around what we know now as our modern day Christmas celebration. And so we've touched on Santa Claus, on the gnomes, on Krampus, but now we're going to kind of move into people's experiences, things that they've reported, because it's easy for us to kind of look at all of this and say, well, Santa Claus is nonsense, or these gnomes are nonsense. But there are experiences, Tobias, that people have had with this, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Just living in Wisconsin, there's a lot of surviving traditions around this say the traditional beliefs.
Right.
There was this particular belief was brought over by the Indians here known as Asgardsrea, and it basically is this fairy procession, for lack of a better term, very similar to the
Okay.
It takes place on Christmas Eve through the Federal Writers Project. So, like in researching my next book on Yuletide tradition,
Yes,
I found this historical record through the Wisconsin Historical Society, and basically for anybody who's back in the 1930s during the Great Depression, something called the Federal Writers Project. And basically, the government paid writers to go around collect all of these traditional sources for people. It was great. I mean, it was a way to keep writers employed during the Great Depression. It was also a really great way to record all of this history and culture, right? And so there was this person in Wisconsin who, as part of this, told about this fairy procession tradition, and it's interesting because in the actual historical society document, it's listed as they actually get the spelling not common. A lot of times, they didn't necessarily know how there wasn't consistent spelling. You know what I mean?
Yes, correct. I do.
It was all word of mouth, and so whatever. But they had it down as Asgardsrea. But then next to it, in the entry is just the word Udestad.
Okay.
And that is in a later story told this person, this farm, where this folkloric account of people encountering this wild fairy procession happens. And so basically what as Asgardsrea is, it's this Christmas Eve tradition. Folk, as they're called, gather together in great numbers, and they go they'll go above ground and then go from place to place. And as they're moving, they make a ton of noise, and they are very capricious, in that sometimes they're very funny and jolly, and other times other times and screeching. And so it's very unstable sort of event. It's something that generally, people would want to avoid.
Right.
And so I saw this, and I was immediately, and so I tried to do more research into where in Wisconsin might be from, and who might have said this story. So all I had to go on was this word Udestad, which kind of sounded like a family name to me, and it wasn't unusual for people back then. They refer to this farm as Udestad. Well, it wasn't unusual for people to name a farm or like something important to their family after their family, right?
Right.
And so I found at that time living in Wisconsin several people with that last name, and they were all around Barron, Wisconsin.
Okay.
That's about
Yeah, that's
4
close to
hours
me,
north.
actually.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. And what's really interesting about Barron, Wisconsin, is that it has its own ferry procession that is attached to it. So this was
Interesting. Yeah.
originally written about, this was originally written about back in the 70s by Jerome Clark for Fate magazine. But he talks to this guy's wife, who the encounter happened to, and she related to him how authentic it was to him and how seriously he believed in it. But anyway, all the way back in there was 13-year-old Harry Anderson who reportedly witnessed a ferry in Barron.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was driving with 2 of his friends and their father, and their car ran out of and came to a stop just east of Barron. And so, luckily for them, there was a local farmer who went out fishing, and he happened to walk by at that time. And when he heard what happened, he offered to give them some oil, but only if one of them actually came back to his house. He didn't want to go all the way home and all the way home.
Right.
So Harry helpfully agreed to retrieve the oil, and he walked miles with the farmer back to his house, then back along the main track road.
Yeah.
And so it was nighttime, and the moon was full and bright, said, providing ample light for him to find his way back to the car. But interestingly enough, it wasn't just the road and his way back he was able to see, because he saw something much, much stranger. He said there in the moonlight was a procession of little men.
Wow. I'm going to have to look at being so close to Barron now. I'm very intrigued on this. Yeah,
it's absolutely fascinating, and it makes me want to go up there and kind of poke around, and see what's to see us, or at least try to find the area. But what he said he saw were 20 little men walking still file, heading to him, but paying no attention to him. So ball, and the figures were dressed in knee pants, held up by sisters. They didn't wear any shirts, and they were sort of mumbling, but apparently not talking to each other, which is kind of strange. So they were mumbling things almost to themselves, at least from her perspective, right?
Right.
So, he was petrified, of course. And,
sure, who wouldn't be?
Right.
How are you going to explain that, right?
Yeah. And so he takes off and gets back to the car as fast as he can. And of course, in a narrative that is all too familiar to investigators like me who regularly interview witnesses, unfortunately, when he got back to the car and he told everybody what he saw, they laughed at him.
Yes.
And that was it. So he didn't really talk about it a lot. He also told his mother, and then later his wife, who's the person who recounted the story to Clark. But both women reportedly very much believed that he had experienced something, because of how seriously he took it. And so it was very interesting to me to find this surviving tradition of the Asgardsrea, seemingly out of the same area where you have this credible fairy procession sighting.
Yeah, and I think it's as you're talking about them too. So to me, as I'm picturing this story, and like I said, being very intrigued because I am actually not far from that area. But then I start thinking about, like Santa and his elves, and the reports of the little elves that travel with him. So it's like, to me, it's like, well, is that what we were experiencing? Is it fairies? So it's interesting how some of these things come into play.
It really, really is, and it's interesting to bring us as elves specifically, because they very much have a basis in fairy lore.
Okay.
Now, again, Santa's elves, as we receive them now, are a 19th century literary invention, were invented by Scandinavian children's stories, basically. However, it is still a strange because so if you look at all of the ways in which stories of Santa Claus are inspired during school and that there is an obvious connection between and elves. He had many dealings with elves traditionally. If you read the Eddas, for instance, there are many stories of Odin interacting with dwarfs and other similar creatures. And when you look at the depiction of the elves by these Scandinavian writers too, they're very obviously inspired also by Nisser. Like their whole look is taken from these helpful household spirits, which might be the inspiration of having them, be these helpful elves to Santa Claus, and be hand building toys and stuff, because that kind of helpful manual is exactly the kind of thing that Nisser are known for.
Right.
So there's still this huge fairy connection there. So it's just endlessly fascinating to me.
It is. It is. And this has really kind of intrigued me on the whole topic too. Before we have a few minutes left before we let you go, and I did want to talk about, modern day Santa Claus is, riding through the sleigh with his reindeer in the sky. And again, as adults, we lose our connection with that. But again, there have been some stories and experiences that people have had. And so I wanted to, because, Santa's coming in just a couple weeks, kind of touch on some of those experiences too.
Definitely. There are modern day Santa Claus sightings.
Yes.
I have taken some of those reports personally, like for instance, this would have been just last year. Now the sighting happened well before they spoke to this one last year. I took this report from Haley Pierce, who it was 24 at the time. Took the was her thing, and she said that when she's 8 years old, she stepped outside of the Christmas Eve service at her local church in Lancaster, Ohio, only to see what appeared to be a sleigh pulled by reindeer flying overhead. This is her report as she told it to me. When I was a kid, I absolutely believed in Santa Claus. As a kid, I could. So much so, in fact, that I wanted to be Santa when I grew up. I believed in Santa a lot later.
Yeah.
Right. Believed in Santa a lot later than I probably should have. I was in sixth grade before I finally lost the spirit, and I think a lot of that has to do with my. So, I was 8 years old, and we were leaving the 11 p.m. Christmas Eve service at our church in Lancaster, Ohio. I had been obsessively tracking Santa on NORAD website all day. I was looking forward to getting home so I could crawl into bed and stay up as late as possible, listening for signals or hooves on our roof like I did every year. I was the first person out of the church when the service was over, because what kid wants to stay in church on Christmas Eve? It was a clear, cold night, and the stars were gorgeous. So I was when I saw kind of shimmering out of the corner of my eye. And so I can only just sleigh. It looked just like it in every movie. It was pulled by reindeer and it left a trail of glowing glitter behind it. Basically. I don't remember if I heard sleigh bells or not. It happened fast, but I was absolutely sure of what I saw. I kind of stood there in shock until my parents came out. I told them what I had seen, and they basically said, "Well, we'd better get to bed at our house." Over the years, I kind of began to die excited, talked it up to a shooting star, and thinking, the nature of paranormal, I accepted my experience was Santa's.
Yeah.
And, it's a fascinating report, and some with I interacted directly, and there's nothing at all to lead to believe that Lily was embellishing her story,
Right.
or in any way being disingenuous. This is something that happened to her, regardless of what people think it was. That was experience, and she's not
Yes.
alone. There's a guy named Stephen Wagner who's posted a list over a dozen Santa sightings. Did most recently, at least last time I checked it, in 2019, and
Okay.
and that's when the website live about. So I've got a link, an article on sighting,
Okay.
sighting, if people want to check out those sightings. But basically, they are eyewitness reports of people who have claimed to have seen Santa Claus.
Yes.
So often it will be a child at home, something, and they will, say that, hey, I saw this guy in my house,
Right.
and he there, and he looked exactly like the depiction of Santa Claus that
Yes.
everybody knows. So yeah, people absolutely have these. What they represent is arguable, certainly.
Yes. Yes.
Like that is a matter of some debate. But what we can't deny is that people are having these experiences that are
Absolutely.
currently unexplained, and they're reported seeing this mythological figure of Santa Claus. I mean, I've received separate reports of people seeing bunnies on Easter.
Right.
And so,
right.
yeah, for whatever reason, there are competing theories. Some people, sightings of Easter Bunny or Santa Claus are due to these sort of collective,
Right.
unconscious
The energy
thought.
that we're all putting into it. Yes.
Right. So essentially, they're being created by our collective belief, and that's why they tend to appear as they do popularly. Like, so
Yes.
if there was a quote unquote real Santa Claus, and it really was
Yes.
based off this figure, the wild, it should look like Odin no matter what, right?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't when people see this here. It usually appears as the depiction of him in popular media at that time.
Right.
And so, really, you've got the two competing theories, other than any mainstream psychological hypothesis. Probably has more to do with things like hallucinations and confirmation bias than anything paranormal. But if you're looking at the paranormality of these experiences, then you've got this thought form rising out of our collective, or you've got something screen memories, or some other enforced sort of hallucination or manipulation of consciousness to make something appear as though it were something else. So, like, for instance, in the case of Halo, that hypothesis, you would have something like, who knows, a UFO or
Right.
flying by, and instead of appearing as what they really are, they're sort of enforced appearance of Santa sleigh on a child. So who knows, though, really. It's interesting to me that get these
and
reports.
I love it. And I think with anything, at the very least, we can agree that all of these experiences coming in, it may not meet the modern day expectation, but there is definitely magic in this season. And so I really want to thank you, Tobias, for coming on and sharing all of this with us, and bringing this knowledge and these resources to our viewers who might be a little interested as to where all of this came from.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff, especially. Yes. Right. There's men in the air Christmas time. I think that we shouldn't take that for granted.
Right.
Yeah, it's endlessly enjoyable, frankly.
Yes. And I hope once you have your book on all this lore together, that you will come back on the show. I'd love to discuss the topic again. And thank you. For anybody who's interested, I will be putting up Tobias's information of where you can find him when we come back from the break. Thank you so much, Tobias.
Okay, thanks.
Want to keep up with the latest at the station? How about catch up on your favorite shows on the go? Download the free WLTK-DB mobile app on the App Store and Google Play. Watch, listen, and shop right from the palm of your hand. The WLTK-DB mobile app. The truth is here and now. Get yours today.
Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, this is Chat with Charlie. I am your host, Stephanie Lynn. And of course, you're listening to us on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. I hope you all really enjoyed the topic for today. It was fantastic having Tobias come in and kind of educate and offer some resources on modern day Santa Claus, where these things developed. And I know there will be a lot of eyes to the sky kind of tuning in to see little eyes, what's out there, and if Santa is going to be landing with reindeer on the roof. And so I think, like I said, we can all agree that there's definitely a magical time to this season. I do want to let you know kind of what's coming up next week. There is a station break. I do believe there's a couple shows that will be airing on Monday, but please, you can always check those out on the station website. And so check it out, go in, look for the updates. We have new shows actually coming on tonight that I think you will really enjoy. The following week on the 29th, I will be welcoming the owner of Young Intentions. We'll be discussing her journey. She's a Reiki master. She does a lot of holistic things. And so we'll be touching base with her. If you are looking for information on how to contact Tobias to look into his books or to find out any other information on the topics that he's investigated, you can find his information in the comments, but it is also up on the screen for you. And so I just want to remind everybody to remember, the magic of the season, to remember what you guys believe, and to keep those eyes open. And I'm pretty sure that if you keep looking and you keep those eyes tuned in, you are going to see Santa Claus flying across the sky.
Merry Christmas.
Is that you, Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Oh, we were just talking about you.
Oh, yes, Tobias.
Yes, he was telling us, there's a lot of debates with our if Santa Claus is real and where you came from. I think a lot of kids have been wondering.
Oh, yes, I'm way up here in the North Pole, loving every minute of it. My first stop is Florida.
Oh, I wish my first stop pick me up and drop me off in Florida, Santa Claus. And so how are things going at the North Pole? You've got 2 weeks till your big flight.
So busy. All my little elves making all these little toys. Oh my goodness, it's so busy. But I'm loving it.
We are excited, Santa Claus. I am honored that you are popping in and giving all of our little viewers the hope. Diana wants to know if you got her list and if she's on the naughty or the nice list.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely on the nice list. There was so many to choose from.
And I love, Santa, that you work with NORAD Santa Tracker, and so we can kind of keep an eye on you so the kiddos know when they need to hide and go to bed. And we have a message from Sherry. She says she wants you to know that she loves you, Santa.
Oh, Sherry, yes, love her too. My goodness.
Do you have any messages for the kids who will be waiting in anticipation for you?
Be good, kids. I'm still watching. Still watching. Still have my list. Always, always, always filling out the list.
Thank you so much, Santa. Thank you for taking time to pop in. And I know our little viewers will appreciate that inspiration from you.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, Santa. What an amazing surprise to have Santa come in and let you guys know he's still watching. And there is still a lot of magic to this season. And so I hope within this coming week that you all remember the magic of the season. Sherry, I love it. She said she's been a good girl, and I believe it. I believe Sherry has been a good girl. So I hope Santa brings you everything that you're looking for. I will see you all back here live in 2 weeks. So again, we are on a station break next week. I wish you all love and joy through this Christmas season. And whatever holiday, some of you may not be celebrating Halloween or Christmas. Yes, none of us are celebrating Halloween right now, are we? Celebrating Christmas. But whatever that season is for you, whatever celebration it is for you right now, I wish you lots of joy in all of that. And so with that, I want to wish you Merry Christmas if you are celebrating it, and lots of love. I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you for tuning in.